My brother saw a ghost as a kid, and 2 decades later, I know what he actually saw. That and some really other crazy, creepy Reddit stories. This one's gonna be crazy. A lot of the stories today are rated NSFW, which is not safe for work, which means they're gonna be juicy, which means let's get into it. I was about 7 years old, my brother about 10. It was well past our bedtime when our mom woke up off the couch to put us in bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was often just the 3 of us at the house for weeks at a time. Stairs and to the immediate right was our parents' bedroom. Going left would put you in the middle of the hallway. Taking another left down that hallway led to my brother's room. The opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from our upstairs bathroom. At either end of the hallway are window doors. We always kept them locked and rarely used. Wait, why? Okay. The door on my end led to a balcony overlooking our front yard, and the door on my brother's end opened to the back porch. It sounds nice. Okay, where's it getting weird? My brother and mom both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was a light sleeper and they couldn't just help flushing with the door wide open. Why is that? Have you ever closed the bathroom door when you go in the middle of the night? I don't. I'm a little pee monster. This night, however, my brother stopped on the way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm gonna try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights, I've been afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try to scare me, or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it, but she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. The hallways are so much scarier when you're a kid. Like now, if I saw a ghost, I'd be like, don't wake me up, don't touch me. Okay. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in her car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendencies towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. No more family in quiet rural neighborhood, etc. Yeah, those people don't call the cops. They do first, ask questions later. Lots of land, they hide the body. Anyways, I asked her what she was talking about and she looked equally surprised as if she had just revealed something on accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were so young at the time. One night I woke up hearing noises outside my window and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom." She went on to describe turning on the lights, which caused him to take off running, and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up, but it was a tall white man wearing a striped shirt, jeans, and short dark hair, something like that. They matched the description of a man that they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, it sounds so obvious hearing those stories back to back, but it wasn't until years ago in my mid-20s that I pieced together that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who had spent multiple nights casing our home. Oh my God. Okay, that's crazy. That's intense. Mom just didn't do anything. Mom didn't even notice. Crazy. Okay. Comments. Wait, was he in your house? Because your brother said he was at the end of the hallway, not in the window. I guess in the dark. No, you know if he was in the house. And then someone said, he just said at the end of the hallway where OP noted there was a window. They were young too, so maybe in the dark it could have looked like he was in there. The other one said, "Bloody hell, we were all sure mom was having an affair." Nice writing there, but holy hell, how terrifying. It's probably lucky your mom saw him though. The cops coming around must have scared him off for good, I hope. Was he ever caught? That's nuts. That is creepy, dude. Next up, a creepy encounter with a woman on the highway. About 6 years ago, I was with my friend Tom at my parents' cabin. We decided to head off to a casino located on an Ojibwe reserve about 40 minutes away. The entire stretch of the highway between is heavily forested and has no lights, meaning it can get incredibly dark. We got there and played some poker, tried a few table games, and grabbed some dinner with our winnings. Pretty successful night overall for both of us. We ended up leaving the casino around 1 a.m., a little later than I would have liked given the lack of any streetlight. Is this like near me. It feels near me. We drive for about 20 minutes on the highway without passing any other vehicles when I noticed two green orbs just off the highway before a hill. Orbs? Like eyes? Like lights? Like ghosts? On a hill. Realizing it was a deer, I slammed on the brakes and waited. Several deer crossed and then I resumed driving. The car was going slowly up the hill because it was starting to stop. As soon as we made the crest of the hill, Tom screamed, "Holy shit!" Right in front of us was a young woman walking in the middle of our lane towards us, no more than maybe 30 feet away. Okay, that's gonna come up fast. I slam on the brakes again and come within 10 feet of her. Thankfully, slowing down earlier and climbing the hill meant we weren't going as fast as it was going through my mind, and it wasn't the fact that I almost ran over someone, but this young woman with pitch black hair, I can just already see here Chris being like, "Oh, it's Selena," was wearing a white nightgown with no shoes and was still walking towards us with a blank, expressionless face. Not going to lie, that image frightened me because it looked like something straight out of a horror movie. Guys, I live really close to the highway. Did I sleepwalk? Is this me? I totally could have made it over there. Tom and I waited to see if she was going to pull up to our window and maybe ask for help or something. She made it to the front of my car and went around to the driver's side. She didn't stop, but she raised her hand and dragged it across the side of my car while continuing her walk. At this point, Tom and I were both freaked out. I asked Tom what we'd do, and he said that we should just get out of here. For whatever reason, I just didn't feel right about leaving and not asking if she was all right. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that she was still walking. Having almost hit her and knowing that something wasn't right, I decided to do something. I told Tom I was going to ask if she was all right. Tom pleaded that we just get out of there. I put on some bravado, and I told him not to worry and I would be right back. I put on my blinkers and stepped out of my car. I left my door open to provide some light and walked around to the trunk of my car. My interior lights didn't do much, but my blinker allowed me to see an outline of her slightly down the hill, only able to see her every other second. Oh, that's a horror movie. I need to remember that. That's spooky. I half yelled, "Are you all right?" She finally stopped walking, but still faced the other way. There was no response. This sounds like a sleepwalker. I heard Tom's door open as he was getting out to join me. Suddenly, she started screaming. Tom and I ran back to my car and just floored it. I got a lot of shit from Tom for the remainder of the ride back to my cabin, and I haven't heard or seen anything like that on the highway since, and I'm pretty thankful for it. That was the creepiest moment of my life. Why do I know this is a sleepwalker? Or is it a ghost? Or was it me? Oh my god. Okay, we have to read the comments. Could you imagine? You know, I never considered that before. She may have been a sleepwalker. Oh, where was this? I wear nightgowns. Everyone's saying sleepwalker. Wait, how did they describe her again?
It was a young woman with pitch black hair wearing a white nightgown with no shoes.
They didn't say on top of her head. I sleep with hair on top of my head, so it's definitely not me. Or is it? A day of play leads to kidnapping. Okay, this is coming from Cheese Rice 1966. I have stalked this sub for a while, but I couldn't decide whether or not to post mine, but I'm feeling brave on a Monday. It was a long time ago, back in 1973. I know it was summer, I was 6, we were living on Monica Lane in Madison, Wisconsin. Thing is, I sort of recalled, but never put 2 and 2 together until a few months ago when I was talking to my mom, who went into great detail. I was a very gregarious child, outgoing, extroverted, same, friends with anyone. It was at this time a middle-class neighborhood. There were 3 houses down from ours, and it was on the same side of the street was a huge park. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a salesman, but mom worked second shift at a Meritor? But my dad worked days. I rarely had a babysitter, only if they went out for dinner or a movie, but they did go out often, so there were always older kids in the neighborhood who would hang around and babysit. One sitter who I really liked lived a few blocks away and down the street a little bit. Vicky had babysat a few times before, and it was pretty uneventful. She'd play games with me, do my hair, play dress up, pretty basic stuff. All right, that sounds like a good time. Man, I wish I had babysitters for grown-ups. Be like, can you play with my hair? Do you want to play house? Okay, that's weird. Selena, don't be so freaking weird. So, anywho, one day I had gone with friends down to the park. I remember there being a ball field at the time and a sandlot next to the field. My friends wanted to play on the monkey bars, but I wanted to stay in the sand. I looked at the sandbox and at my babysitter. Vicky was standing there. I told my friends I was going down to the sandbox and ran off. We played in the sand, building a sandcastle, when she asked me if I wanted to go get something cold to drink. I was stifling hot, so of course I said yes. So she takes my hand and we start walking to her place. She starts telling me about her puppies and asking if I want to play with them. Of course I get giddy, and now I can't wait to get to her house. This is where my memory stopped after my mom told me what happened. The rest of it flooded back. My mother just happened to be talking to my sister and I about some places we lived, and when we got to Monica Lane, I told her I remembered the park and how big it seemed, and she asked me if I remembered being kidnapped. Excuse me? I immediately thought she was kidding, but the look on her face told me otherwise. She said it was around 5 in the afternoon and one of my friends had come to the door to ask for me to come back outside. Sure that I had gotten bored and walked back home. When my mom checked the house, she realized that I was not there. She was 7 months pregnant with my sister. She sprints to the park screaming my name. After asking several kids if they had seen me with no clue, she then went to the ball field and asked the older boys if they had seen me. One of the boys, she guessed around 14, had said that he'd seen a younger woman playing with the girl that fit my description in the sand and walked off in a general direction, and that's all that he knew. My mom ran across the street to one of the houses and asked to use their phone to call the police. By the time the police got there, my dad had come home and some of the neighbors were trying to help my mom. I literally cannot even fathom the panic. I remember I was at the mall a couple months ago and I saw a baby run out of a store like a toddler, and nobody was chasing the baby, and I was like 1, 2, 3, because I'm a mom now. I'm ready to go chase this baby down. But it was like 1, 2, 3, and then a mom just comes running out. She's like, Betty! And she found him, thank God. But like my stomach like curled into a ball and then fell out my ass. It fell out my asshole. So there's a search party out looking for me, screaming my name and knocking on doors. The police had gone back to the park to ask the boys if they knew who had been with me and if they knew who she was. Between the boys and the neighbors, they had deduced? Is that right? Because that sounds like a double I'm sorry. Who it was, and that had led me off, but I have no idea, honestly. The police and the entourage go to her home. She lived with her parents that weren't home, and they knock on the door. She came to the door and told them that she hadn't seen me and that she had been home all day. The police asked to come in, and for some reason she said okay. They went through the house and went to the basement and found me. That's what my mom knew, and then I remembered. It was literally like a floodgate that had opened and I started crying. At 6, you sort of trust everyone, and she'd been in our home, so this is her old babysitter. I never got a bad feeling from her, and my parents didn't either. But when we walked to her house, I remember a cold, holy F feeling washing over me and getting very worried. I remember starting to cry and saying I wanted to go home over and over. She takes me into the kitchen and gets me a glass of water and a tissue. I hear dogs barking, and next to the kitchen is an open stairway that goes down to where the dogs are barking. She starts trying to cajole me to go downstairs, telling me that there's tons of toys and games. I reluctantly agree and she grabs my hand to head down the stairs. The dogs are going nuttier and I start screaming. At this point, Vicky is getting bizarre. She's screaming at me to shut up, and if you don't shut up, I will throw you in the cage with the dogs and they will eat you, dragging me down the stairs as I'm still screaming. I was scared out of my mind. I remember crying so hard I was hyperventilating, and I was screaming so hard I wasn't even making sounds. Vicky then flips a switch and starts being syrupy sweet, trying to calm me down. She tells me that she was just playing a game and then asked me if I wanted to play hide and seek. She must have been relatively skilled at calming me down, because next thing I know, I hear knocking on the door upstairs and I wasn't crying. These houses were all the same sort of tract houses that Sears used to sell. Sears used to sell houses? Not huge, but not small, but you could hear everything in every spot of the house. Wow, Sears. And now Sears is gone. Rip, I like all those big stores, just big empty Sears stores. I kept hearing knocking and she tells me that it's her friends and that they're coming to play hide and seek. She convinced me to let her put a piece of masking tape over my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound, and lifted me into this big wooden box next to a kennel. She put a big pile of blankets over me and told me to be really quiet so they didn't find me. The whole time the dogs were going batshit. When she calmed me down, they calmed down too. They still looked incredibly mean, but they were no longer frothing from the mouth or growling until the knocking started. I remember scrunching in there, confused, still scared and convinced the dogs were going to get out and eat me. I was crying again and hyperventilating, remembering taking the tape off my mouth because I couldn't breathe. But I remembered I needed to be quiet because I was afraid what she would do if I screamed. I laid in that smelly bag next to a bag of dog food, sweating, tears rolling down my face. I sort of pushed the blankets to the side, just enough that I could pull them over me when somebody came. I recall thinking about my dad and wondering if he would come find me. All of a sudden, I hear what sounds like adults yelling my name. They come down the stairs and the dog's going crazy again. Over them are men yelling my name. And then I hear a man say, if you don't shut those dogs up, I will. I was in a large storage box, like a big carpenter's toolbox type of thing, with tape hanging off my mouth when they opened the lid. I remember a very nice man asking my name and asking if I was okay. I don't remember answering him or anything other than screams and tears and grabbing his neck so hard that my dad had to practically pry me off him. I remember my parents taking me to the hospital to get checked out, but that's all I really remember. My mom said that Vicky was found guilty of attempted kidnapping. Attempted? You done been napped. I hope she's still in there. And the last I knew, she was in prison, but I couldn't remember when was the last time she had heard anything. We moved out of the area shortly thereafter, and I haven't been back since. I do know that my mom said that her parents were odd, but she didn't know them. She had met Vicky from a neighbor who had used her as a babysitter and had never heard anything bad, and that the kids always seemed happy with her. My mom and dad had only met her parents when they came to the door to ask for forgiveness, that Vicky hadn't meant anything bad and was a good girl. Mom said that my dad picked up her dad by the shirt and told him that if he ever came on the property again, he would yeet him. Whoa! So that's like one of those things. First, those parents shouldn't have showed up. They should have showed up, yes, to say sorry, but not to say that she was a good kid. Obviously, the things that happen are absolutely insane, and that is something to never be forgiven. Those people are not right in the head. Not right. This one is titled The One Who Got Away from the Railroad Killer. Now, this is coming from Whitney Cat. Okay, I'm glad you got away, baby. Let's talk about it. I was 19, staying late at the college darkroom to develop some film for my photography class. The photography building was dark, rickety, a big hulk, near some lonely railroad tracks in a little less traveled part of campus. I finished developing my film close to midnight and I headed out. Nervous as always to be alone out at night in this deserted part of town. It was dark. Several of the street lights around the parking lot were out, and the few that were left were also dim, putting out a weak, flickery light that did nothing to reassure me as I headed towards my car. I heard him before I saw him, scrape of feet on asphalt. He said, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" I startled and dropped my keys. He mumbled an apology for scaring me, and I noticed he was wearing a jogging suit and limping. "What do you need?" I said. He hobbled a step or two towards me. "I think I sprained my ankle. Could you take me to the ER? The university hallway is a short distance down the road." I hesitated. The guy looked perfectly pleasant, but I'd recently finished a book about, serial killer Ted Bundy, who lured some of his victims by pretending to have a broken arm and asking them to help carry books to his car. When they leaned over to put his stuff in the passenger seat of his Volkswagen Bug, he knocked them unconscious with a crowbar and stuffed them inside. The scene played across my mind as I looked at the guy. It also occurred to me to wonder why the hell anyone would jog in this creepy part of town. Yeah, do you have the no danger thing in your brain like me? Chris and Adam get so stressed about that. "I'm sorry, I can't do that, but I can call someone for you. There's a phone in the photography building there. There's nobody to call. I just moved here. I don't really know anybody. Could you just drive me? It's right down Limestone Avenue." He leans against the car and winced as he reached down to rub his ankle. "I'll call you an ambulance," I offered. I like you. You're like, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. He said, "No, I can't afford that. I don't have health insurance. Can you just drive me? I'll pay you $20. There was something in the way that he said this last bit, something wrong, like an exercise in my acting class when we had to recite "Mary Had a Little Lamb," as though we were delivering a tragic monologue or a furious rant. There was a tone rising up that didn't quite match the words he was saying, a raw urgency that reached down inside me that hit the panic button hard. There was a moment of silence between us. "I can't help you," I said. "I'm leaving." I grabbed my keys, slipping them between my fingers the way my mom had taught me, so I could use them as a weapon if he came at me. I kept my eyes on him as I sped walk out of there a few feet to my car. He watched me drive away, still leaning against the car, a flat expression on his face. Away from the dark parking lot, driving through campus with my music turned up, the fear faded. I started to feel a little guilty for leaving him there, although I know that I'd done what my mom and dad would have wanted me to do. I was about to turn into my dorm parking lot when I realized I needed to pick up some stuff for breakfast the next morning, so I turned around and headed back to the direction I'd come. About a minute down that road, my stomach clenched up. There was the guy in the jogging suit, running along the sidewalk. His ankle was perfectly fine. Later that summer, 2 students at my college were attacked by those same railroad tracks. The girl survived, but the boyfriend died. The man who attacked them was a serial killer dubbed the Railroad Killer by police. He murdered dozens of people across several states, most of them near railroad tracks. I didn't see his mugshot on TV until years later, but the picture broke me out in the same icy sweat I had felt when I saw that guy running down the street. I can't be 100% positive, but my gut tells me I escaped a serial killer that night. Oh, I got goosies! I got goosey bumps. I got them. Ooh, damn. Oh, damn. No, I hate that. Now, after that, why wouldn't we just talk about another creepy encounter in a parking lot? Why are parking lots so scary? Why, when they're desolate and those lights are just standing around by themselves, why do they become the scariest places I've ever seen in my life? Tell me. I don't know, let's get into it. This is from Southern_lady, and it says, creepy encounter I had in a parking lot. A few years ago, it was Friday and I was off work at lunchtime, so I was looking forward to the weekend. I commute 40 miles to work, and I did not feel like waiting to go home to have lunch. So I decided to go to a chain grocery and get a sandwich, and since it was a beautiful autumn day, sunny, but the air was crisp and cool, I was gonna go sit in my car, eat my sandwich, drink my Coke, and enjoy a book I had purchased recently. Oh damn, that sounds crispy. That sounds good. That sounds like a good day. I parked near the back of the parking lot, and after getting my food and returning to my car, I opened my car door. Because the sun was shining in, even though it was cool outside, it was a little hot inside the car. I was not too concerned or worried about anyone bothering me since this city has a low crime rate and this grocery store was in a good neighborhood. But I still would frequently look in my mirrors and kind of glance around just to be on the safe side. I had just done a quick scan around the parking lot and didn't see anyone. And upon returning my attention to my book, I heard a male voice say, "Excuse me, miss." I looked up and there was a guy standing there. He was standing at the end of my open car door and gave me a weird vibe because I had just said I scanned the parking lot and I had not seen anyone. My first assumption was that he was homeless and I was expecting him to ask for some spare change. Anyway, this guy was pretty big, chubby but muscular too. He looked like he would be on a football team. He was probably just under 6 foot, 20 something, blonde hair to his shoulders, looked a little scruffy and unkempt. He wore a backpack and he said the words of this effect, "My father just died in Kentucky. Someone told me that there's a rescue mission over on Tennessee Street and that they buy me a bus ticket to get home. Just to clarify, I'm in Florida and the city was named after, the city streets are named after states." Okay, I assumed he was asking me for directions, so I replied that Tennessee Street was only half a mile over. I then pointed that way and gave him directions and explained that I was not really familiar with the area. I didn't know where the actual place was, but for the street, I did know. I assumed that then he would leave, but he didn't. He repeated the same spiel again about how his father died, a free bus ticket, rescue mission, etc. And I found myself repeating the directions once again. I was unfamiliar with the area. I have a ghost experience. Like, this is crazy. I had someone ask me for directions on the Pittock Trail 3 times in a row. And the last time when I turned around and pointed where it was, I turned back to him and he was gone. So after our second verbal dance, it began to dawn on me that he was dropping a major hint that he wanted me to offer him a ride over to Tennessee Street. I was not meant to be uncaring, but I don't give rides to strangers. Well, he repeated himself a third time and I found myself repeating the directions for him. I noticed his jaw tensed. His eyes narrowed and he began a threatening stance. He was becoming a little angry and hostile. I don't like it! I quickly looked around and the only people in the parking lot was an elderly lady with a bag boy gathering the grocery carts, and they were both several lanes over and towards the front, and I was towards the back of the parking lot. It was just me and this guy who was obviously having a serious problem with me, that I was not taking the bait and offering him a ride. For reference, I'm a female, 5'4" and 140 pounds. He had some pounds, height, and muscle on me, and it suddenly dawned on me, for a naive small town girl self, that he could just shove me over and get in my car with me, and I would not be able to get away. My keys were in the bottom of my purse, and my driver's side door had a broken lock, so staying in the car or just shutting the door real quick and leaving was really not an option. Before things could go further, I made my decision. I was not going to be trapped in my car. I quickly grabbed my purse, jumped out, and got on the other side of my car before he even had time to think about it, and being the sweet southern girl I am, I turned to face him and backed away and told him I was sorry to hear about his father and I wished him well, but I just remembered something I needed to buy in the store. I turned, did not walk, but ran back to the store. I made sure to come out when there were plenty of people in the parking lot, and he was not there, and I have not seen him since that day. He did frighten me, but obviously was not going to go away. Then there was the issue of this becoming angry with me, which in itself was scary. The whole time he and I were talking, I could not understand why he didn't just go ask someone else for a ride, but he seemed determined that it was going to be me. Since that day, I've been a lot more careful, and I don't sit my car in my parking lot anymore. See, this is why you have to drive mean cars with dark tint. I don't care if it's a 2002 Honda Civic, you black on black tint that thing, and then nobody can see you in there. That's my favorite. Every car I get, first thing I do, I say, make those windows almost illegal. Get as close to illegal as you can. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want anyone to know I'm in here. Comments here. He was no good. He totally could have walked that half mile. He didn't need a ride. He insisted on repeating himself instead of asking for a ride nicely. Normal people don't get angry with someone when they don't grant them what they've asked for. That's the thing. Like, I've heard that too. Like, you hear that with a lot of people. It sounds like such a ploy because he's like working on your emotions. He's like, oh, my dad died. She's going to feel bad for me. She's going to give me a ride. No! No, creepy encounter. Get away, bro. Oh my God, everyone's running into creepy people. I will never help a random stranger in the street, no matter how convincing they are. This is coming from Daily Donuts 16. This happened to me back in 2007. I was 9 years old and my brother was 14. My mom had sent us out of the house with about $30 to go to a movie and maybe get a bite to eat afterwards. In 2007, $30 was enough for you to go to the movie and get a bite to eat. You know what? Not if you got snacks at the movie theater. No, you wouldn't be able to do it. Think about it when you were in 2007. Could $30? How old are you? After watching the movie, it was getting pretty dark and we were ready to go home, but my brother wanted to get something to eat first. So we agreed to walk to McDonald's, which was only a couple blocks from the movie theater. On our way there, we stopped and were approached by a man. He had a friendly smile plastered on his face and he was holding a child's hand. Okay, not creepy. There didn't seem to be anything off about this man. He was average looking and seemed to be nothing more than a father having a day out with his son. Hey, do you think you could give my son and I a hand real quick? He asked. We need help loading a mattress into the back of our truck. The truck is just off the road. I'm just literally thinking about last year. I left like a medical supply store and I was walking in my car and this guy, he's like, hey, your son is Spooky Boo. And I'm like, yeah. And we were out front of like this really big creepy warehouse. He's like, I own this warehouse building. It's haunted. Like upstairs is haunted. Do you want to see it? And he's like, I know this person you know. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. He's like, follow my truck over here. So the garage door goes up, truck goes in. I go in, I'm standing there, puts the door down. It's pitch black. Then the light turns on. This man goes, come with me, come in. We walk through these warehouse hallways. Scary as fuck. I don't know this man. I don't know this man. He takes me up to this big empty room. Totally could be a room. He's like, this is haunted. This is so cool. Takes me up onto the roof of the building. He was the nicest guy. I didn't get murdered, but nothing in my head was like, wow, I'm alone with this strange man in this building. You know what it is like when I see like one person, I'm convinced I could take him. I'm convinced I could take anybody. If it's just one-on-one, not only that, I will spin and shit. And you know what? I was wearing like tights and the biggest platform shoes. Like I could not run away. So we said, sorry, but we don't have time. My brother said it at this time and I noticed the little boy. He was about 8 years old and looked abnormally thin. He had a blank expression on his face and wore clothes that were much too big for him. I turned my attention back to the man who was now mumbling to my brother about how it would only take a second. My brother kindly declined again. Being the helpful kid that I was, I joined in with the man and tried to persuade my brother that we should help him out. I turned to my brother who was now staring down the little boy. My brother had a disturbed expression on his face as he looked down at the child. The child stared back at my brother blankly. I didn't understand why my brother had this look on his face. He grabbed my hand and said, I think that's my mom over there. Pulled me and we began walking away from the man. I don't understand what was going on, but my brother had just lied about our mom being there. He didn't let go of my hand and practically dragged me until we were far a distance away from this man and his son. I looked back and could still see the man holding his son's hand, only now he wasn't smiling anymore. He had a look of fury on his face as he yanked that little boy from the arm and they walked away. This is horrible. I pulled away from my brother's grasp and bombarded him with questions. He shushed me and pulled his cell phone out of his pocket. He dialed a number and began pacing around nervously while talking on the phone. I remember the police showing up and my mom came soon after. She took me home and my brother was left with the police. I asked my mother what was going on and she said that the police were just questioning my brother because the man that he encountered was dangerous. She had told me that when I went to bed. By the next morning, I had almost completely forgotten about the incident and things went back to normal. It wasn't until a few days ago that these memories flooded back in my mind, so I decided to call my now 22-year-old brother to get some answers. When I brought the ordeal back up to him, he finally gave me the information I wanted to know, and I wanted to know everything. I understand how truly terrifying the encounter was. My brother told me that while the man was constantly trying to convince us to come with him, he happened to look at the little boy. The little boy had looked at my brother with his eyes filled with terror and mouthed the words, I'm not his son, please help me. Then this expression went back to being completely blank, almost as if he had never said anything at all. This is why he had become so freaked out and snatched me away. When he called the police, they hurried down and described the man the best they could. They couldn't do much with the little information that my brother had given, because we hadn't even seen the car that the man supposedly had. My brother told me that a few weeks into the investigation, that they had found the little boy who was with the man dead. His body had been dumped in the woods and his cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration. If my brother had gone with the sicko, we likely would have met the same fate. He obviously couldn't kidnap both of us on his own, as my brother was a fairly strong fellow. That meant that he had other partners that were going to help snatch unsuspecting kids. Unfortunately, they were never able to catch any of these people that did this, but the man was definitely not his father. His real parents had already been searching for the missing son for over a month. The people had managed to kidnap this poor kid, use him as a puppet to catch other kids. Every time I think about the boy, I feel deep pity for him. He was only a year younger than I at the time, and I can only imagine how terrible it must have been to starve to death. This is one of the saddest things I've ever read. Poor kid. That is horrible. I live in this ignorance bubble because my brain I can't do it. I'm the kind of person who's like sees a sad dog story and will stay up for 3 days and just think about the dog. I just want to say, and I say this in all my videos, if you see something, you say something. I have called the cops about the dumbest shit because I thought it was something, but one of the times it wasn't. So I will always call. If I see something, I will say something. Now here's a creepy encounter someone had while doing an urban exploration. Okay. This story comes from Belgium and took place in 2020 during COVID confinements. I was 20 back then at the time. Because of the severity of the pandemic in Belgium, the law stated that you can only go out to practice sports or to work. I took the habit of meeting with a friend, Sully, to go out for runs and practice all kinds of sports in general. Both of us were quite fond of urban exploration and knew a spot on the outskirts of Brussels, consisting of an old sports and wellness center where we took the habit to hang out after our runs. To get into the spot, you must go through a hole in a fence on a street, cross a portion of woods, and you'll come up on a football pitch and tennis court up on the hill in the center, which is by a 4-story building. The whole center takes a whole street block. Okay. On that day, we had just finished a 5-kilometer run and went to our spot as usual. We were walking to the building since it was about to rain, and we saw 2 teenagers sitting on the roof edge. And I remember thinking that it bothered me since we were planning to go to the roof as well. So as we went to the hall area to wait, with the bit of the hopes that these people would leave. In the hall area, you have a clear view into the kitchen, which you must go through if you want to go to the roof. You can also see another small hall and into the dining room. Sully was rolling himself a cigarette while I was gathering 2 chairs and an office table for us to sit. The next part gives me chills to this day. As I started setting everything up, I remembered starting to feel unwell, as I was being watched and not in a good way. That's when I looked at the kitchen and saw for a brief moment a head sticking out of the door frame and staring at us. It was a man. I couldn't say what age he was as he was all dirty, but the only thing I remember is that he had an exaggerated happy expression on his face. Oh, I hate it. Like he had just found exactly what he was looking for. At that moment, I just froze and was unable to react bravely in this situation. I leaned towards Sully, all while trying to keep eye contact with the man, and told him very calmly that we had to go immediately. I tend to make lots of jokes with all my friends, especially Sully, but when he saw the look on my face when I told him we had to leave, he didn't say a word. I just took the backpack, stood up, and we ran to the football pitch and saw the 2 teenagers still on the roof. We started to ask if the man was with them or if they saw him, and they answered no, they hadn't seen anyone and that they had come by themselves. So if someone was there, he wasn't with them. We told them that it was probably better for them to leave as well, since we didn't know what the man in the lobby was up to. They told us they would be fine and they would leave a bit after. We decided to leave since we had already told them what we saw and had also already been out for so long. It wasn't very legal with confinement rules. As we were walking towards the woods, I turned back and I swear I could see a silhouette standing in front of the staircase leading to the roof, but my mind couldn't quite react and I just left alongside my friend. I don't know what happened to those teenagers, but I found articles in local papers dating from the time about teenagers being chased by a crazy man in abandoned buildings, but the information wasn't given enough for me to be sure if it was the same people in the same story. I love abandoned places, but like homeless people take up in abandoned places, and a lot of the time homeless people have mental health issues, and mental health issues lead to just spooky stuff. Why not get into more strangers though? Let's talk about Valerian Jedi having a strange man hunting him through a national park. Wow, this sounds fun. Okay. I was camping in the middle of nowhere in Washington near Mount Rainier, like not an official campground, just out in the forest where you wouldn't expect to see another human for miles. One night I wake up and hear something. I open my tent. There was a guy sitting by where my fire had been, right outside my tent. No, nothing particularly noteworthy about the guy, just fairly regular looking dude sitting there a couple feet in my tent. No bag, pack, or anything with him, just a guy. He saw me open the tent, his eyes got huge like he had just seen a ghost, and he took off. Why would he be surprised? He's at your camp. It shook me up pretty bad, but over the next day, I managed to put it out of my mind fairly well after writing it off just as an odd occurrence. You went to bed? That guy was probably high or something and had somehow managed to set up a camp, coincidentally not far from mine. Okay, so he thought it was just wrong camp. Then 2 days after that, 10 to 15 miles in totally random directions that nobody could take the same path on accident, I was sitting by the fire that night when I started hearing noises, and I got more and more convinced that there was a person. I called out to them, and out of the darkness, someone said, Do you know how to get to Bell's Canyon? I said no. I don't even think that's a real place there. They kept talking, just out of my line of vision. I tried to see them with my flashlight, but they yelled, aim that way. Kind of spooked and not wanting to piss off a potentially crazy person, I did. After like 15 minutes of me being freaked out and them talking and asking completely random questions from the darkness, it sounded like the voice had gotten closer, so I shined my light that way again. It was the same dude that had been outside my tent 2 nights before. He had to have followed me at least 15 miles over 2 days, because there is no way he could have just accidentally wound up in the same spot in this vast wilderness. I hate this. As soon as my light was on him, he took off again. Oh, I'm out. I don't even like reading this. I'm like, oh God, I want to barf. I started to chase him, but I didn't want to get lost in the wilderness in the dark, so I stopped quickly. Why? Run the opposite direction home. But this one couldn't be written off because the only way he could have been in both places at once is if he was following me. I decided that the trip was over very first thing in the morning. Why are you waiting? I hiked back over 3 days, constantly doubling back, trying to throw anyone off my trail and occasionally hiding and waiting to see if he would come by following me. I can't describe how terrifying it was, and I feel like I was being hunted through the woods, and to actually have a brainstorm on things that I could do to avoid being potentially yeeted. On the first night of hiking out twice, I heard a sound that sounded like a person walking outside in circles by my tent. But by the time I mustered the courage to look, nobody was there. On the second night, I heard what was an animal making noises in the distance, and I slowly decided that it was a human making animal calls, but it could have actually just been an animal. But I didn't see the guy again, but it really sounded like a person making howling noises. I literally almost cried when I got back to my car as the relief was so strong. What? I won't even go out on my property at night, and I know nobody's out there, but like, can you imagine being 15 kilometers in, you haven't seen a person, and there's somebody talking to you and you can't, were they real? Could you imagine how fun it would be to fuck with someone like that though? Oh my God, I'm seeing it from both sides. Okay, comment. Sounds like you're in a 3-day horror movie. Yeah, it sounds like a really scary horror movie and it sounds delicious. I'll write a screenplay. I want to be done. I want to be done now because these are scary and I'm spooked and I love it. Are you guys enjoying these Reddit stories? Please let me know. I absolutely enjoy them. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're happy. I hope you're full of love and life and full of chocolate bunnies. I know Easter was a while ago. I'm still eating chocolate, but I'm trying not to, but I am. I love you. Stay strong, stay true to you, and talk to you later. Bye, Boo Crew.